All right, so we back. Gonna do a couple reactions. I might just do one, depending on how long it's gonna take. It's probably gonna take me till about 11:30. I took way too long in that break, so I got caught up in the Pokemon DLC, just playing off stream, and yeah. Regardless, let me pull this up. Hold on. And we are good. Okay, this is the suspicious rise of Bobby Atliff. Altoff, maybe? I said Atliff. Altoff by Maddie Balls. Pause.
Bobbi Altoff is a podcast host, I'm
It is Altoff. God, that shit's loud in my ears.
sure most of us have seen, as she's gone super viral over these past few months. From interviewing people like Drake and Shaq to featuring on the Today Show, Bobbi Altoff has been everywhere. But this has left many people wondering, where did she come from and how did she get here? Many people have
Her rise was pretty fast. Now, that's from the person speaking from the outside. I don't know her prior to. So, like, people love to throw the industry plant word around or title on somebody really fast because, they're not familiar with their rise. And just because they're either unaware, they might feel like they're so in the now, but they really not. There's a bunch of people trying to be artists and trying to be podcasters, trying to be entertainers and content creators every day. People are gonna blow up just out of fucking nowhere to you because you might not have seen it. Apparently, this girl's already popping, so who knows? We will find out if he can uncover some extra information, or this is just a video just describing whether he thinks she is or not.
even suggested that she is one of the first ever podcast industry plants. It's actually one of the first things that comes up when you search for her on YouTube. So today I wanted to investigate how Bobbi Altoff was able to secure interviews with people like Mark Cuban and Drake, even though she just started out. And I was able to find a few clues that may help us figure it out. First, I want to say there's a ton of videos on her already on YouTube, and I've seen every single one, but no one's been able to figure out how she's gotten into this position. Most of it's just been speculation with a few facts here and there. So I took it upon myself to find out.
Yeah, oh, Drake was trying to fuck, and he was like, all right, so let me just hang out with her because her interview style is different. But right before the Drake shit, the Funny Marco shit came out, so she was obviously popping enough to get Funny Marco, or that was part of her rise. Because right after Funny Marco was Drake, then the Mark Cuban, then the Lil Yachty, and then here we are today.
Out a ton of information about her, and it may help us solve this case. But one thing about Bobbi's explosive growth is that I bet she's got a ton of finances now that are hard to keep track of, which is why this video is brought to you by Rocket Money. I always
What a fucking transition to the ad.
told myself that I would never have so many subscriptions that I lose track, but after a few years, I'm getting charged left, right, and center for who knows what. And as that started happening, Rocket Money came through to help me. Rocket Money is an all-in-one finance platform that helps you save more and spend less. Two of my favorite things. It's a
I do feel like there's some people that do need this, but if you can't identify, depending on what your situation is, because like if you have a house and you have other things and like kids, bills come out of just could just come out of the fucking woodwork. So I can understand that. But if you are somebody that just like don't really got much going on, yeah, trying to not understanding when your bills are coming out, you should have a pretty clear grasp on that. I think you should attempt, but it's my opinion. Trust me, as somebody that's made a lot of bad financial decisions, I know when my fucking money's coming out. I made sure of it.
personal finance app that allows you to manage your subscriptions, lower your bills, build a custom budget, and grow your savings all in one place. It's super handy, and like I said, I'm using Rocket Money to help me cancel unwanted subscriptions. I also really enjoy the feature to set budgets so that way I can monitor how much I spend by each category, and it even notifies.
Every time I hear that, I use it to cancel subscriptions or any application that does basically what this app does. I always feel like they're subbing Netflix or like streaming platforms.
me when I go over budget. And another feature that is super useful is the smart savings, which after choosing an amount and a frequency, Rocket Money will automatically deposit savings into a smart savings account. You can also withdraw from it at any time. And anyone that knows me knows that I love to try to save my money, be smart with it, and do all that stuff. So I highly recommend this app. It's super helpful, very intuitive, and it's perfect for someone who's new to trying to save their money and make sure they're doing all the right things. So to save more and spend less, join the 3.4 million members using Rocket Money today. I've also got a nice little deal for you. So just go to the link in the description or go to rocketmoney.com/mannyballs to get started today for free. You can also unlock even more features with premium. Like I said, that is rocketmoney.com.
Go hit the link in the description. You see the shit? Yes, sir.
/MattyBalls or the link in the description to get started for free. Anyways, back to the video. So first, let's talk about what we know. Bobbi Althoff first appeared on most people's TikTok For You pages when she interviewed the comedian / content creator Funny Marco.
Yeah, see, like that's a lot of people's first introduction to this girl is the Funny Marco interview. And if you know Funny Marco does basically similar content. I'm not gonna say who did it first. I don't know how long she's been doing it. I know Funny Marco have been doing it for a little while now. So who knows? But they're not the only ones doing this style either. I don't know if who did it first, whatever, it doesn't matter. But this is definitely the start of her public rise. And then to go from Funny Marco to Drake is like an insane jump. It's like, all right, if you went from, let's say, Funny Marco to yeah, she went from Funny Marco to Lil Yachty to trying to get a rapper like a Little Baby, and then Drake. That would have been, it still would have been really fast, but it would have still been a way better progression. You feel me?
There were a ton of funny moments because both of them have a really awkward, deadpan sort of humor that worked out really well for an interview. More clips of her interviewing other people began circulating, such as her interview with Rick Glassman and her interview with Armani White. Bobbi began blowing up as many people found her very entertaining, and clips from her interviews were...
See, no, I didn't know that. Because if those came out after the Funny Marco, then I am wrong on the timeline. Like I said, all I know is the Funny Marco, and then right after that was Drake. So she had all that in between. Then me and a lot of other people are wrong on that shit.
Dominating TikTok, but there were also plenty of
that last comment, it just seemed crazy. What did that shit say?
her very entertaining, and clips from her interviews were...
I dated a girl in wheelchair. Oh, it was a quote from the
but there were also plenty of
questions
interview about where she came from, as her rise was very quick and she only had about 3 podcast episodes out. However, this question wasn't super prominent until the 4th episode of her podcast when she went mega viral because she secured an interview with Drake. This interview was huge and garnered over...
And also getting an interview with Drake is fucking huge. Like, if you don't know, I don't know how you don't. Drake don't interview with just anybody. That's a fact. Everybody knows that. Fucking Elliot Wilson on Twitter crying about not getting a Drake interview and subbing this chick because he was mad salty and he already had a Drake interview. You could probably count on maybe max one hand for the last 5 years for how many Drake interviews we've gotten. That is not some like Lil Yachty pop-up little bullshit. Like an actual interview. It's not many.
11 million views before it was deleted. More on that later. Clips were going around all over TikTok and everyone was talking about it because it was pretty funny, especially seeing a superstar like Drake in a more open and awkward environment. Bobbi was blowing up and she was even topping the Apple Podcast charts. This led to tons of people assuming that she was an industry plant because how else is someone going to get Drake as a guest on the 4th episode of their podcast? It didn't help the accusations after she followed up her Drake interview with a Lil Yachty interview, a Mark Cuban interview, and
all right, but I also feel like in a way you could also argue, look, if you did secure the Drake interview, for instance, the Tiger interview following that, if you look at that part of the interview where she's like, oh, acting like she don't know Tiger, she doesn't know Rack City, blah blah blah. Now Tyga could reach out and be like, yo, you can meet me, blah blah blah, and I want to interview with you because she's popping. Now that gives him a little traction to whatever album he about to work on, whatever music or whatever adventures he got, or just to be seen. Little Yachty, that's Drake's man's. Makes sense right after. Mark Cuban, that's different. Getting the Mark Cuban interview ain't, I don't know if that's easy either. Like Mark Cuban is a pretty social person, like publicly social, where you see him kind of more than most other billionaires and well, at least team owners, but still getting that interview is fucking huge.
A Tyga interview. But then there was some drama. About a week after posting the Drake interview, it was taken down, and both her and Drake unfollowed each other on Instagram. There were a ton of rumors as to why this happened, and the main one was that Bobbi slept with Drake and then divorced her husband. Then Dave Portnoy chimed in and kind of upped the rumors, which led to Bobbi making a statement claiming they were all untrue. Little editor's note here, I forgot to mention that the sentence, "I did not want to do this podcast in the first place, and now so much negativity is coming from it," was a pretty controversial sentence from Bobbi. A lot of people thought this meant the Drake podcast or her entire podcast in general, but I think when you understand the context, it's actually pretty obvious she's talking about the BFFs podcast with Dave Portnoy, because a ton of negativity and controversy has come from that. So yeah, I just wanted to clear that up real quick. There's even more speculation.
I wonder what the controversy. Like I remember hearing about the like I know about the text message. I remember seeing that on the timeline, and Dave making a public statement on I think what was it, Instagram or Twitter, one of the two, about it. Yeah, I remember that, but to the interview itself, I remember people talking about it, but I don't remember exactly what the controversy about the interview was. So hopefully he gets into it, but I have nothing to add to that.
That this was some sort of PR stunt, but we may never know for sure. Regardless, the entire situation led to a ton.
Oh, it definitely looked like a PR stunt. It definitely gained more traction for if the interview ever came back, or like the controversy of like people questioning why did the interview get taken down. So now you're a whole talking point for the next 2-3 days, and then Drake's on tour with 21 Savage, one of the highest grossing hip hop tours ever, and then you're talking about for all the dogs, whatever the name of that album that he's coming out with, now pushed back to October 6th, I think. Whatever date it is now. Yeah, this dude he's a marketing genius. So it helps her because it's controversy in her, so she gets sympathy. Drake looks kind of like a bad guy, whatever, and he'll take that. He don't really care. And then she gets to look like a victim, and then boom.
Of hate towards Bobbi.
But that's just a theory.
There's also a lot of speculation that her and her
Yo, what's good with Mark Cuban's feet, boy?
Led to a ton of hate towards Bobbi. There's also
damn, Mark, you too rich to be having feet looking like that.
A lot of speculation that her and her husband did actually get divorced, since she's pretty flirty in interviews with some of her guests.
And then bring.
That's Mark Cuban. That man is worth a bunch of zeros. Her husband has to take that L. Like, bring home something. He has to take that out. He ain't Drake too. Now Tyga, Little Yachty, nah, you can't lose your girl to them. Nah. But dudes with that kind of money, unless she loves him and does, and obviously maybe she does, but
all your single NBA players.
Whether or not that's true, she got even more hate after she appeared.
And I don't even know if that was flirting. That just, I don't know.
On the BFFs podcast with Dave Portnoy. A clip of her talking about her Lil Yachty interview, which followed her Drake interview, went viral on Twitter.
Because he was awkward. I walked into his house. He didn't even like say hi to me. So then I was like, said, let's go to the bathroom. So then we go to the bathroom and then we like get out and then he's like, he's just sitting there with like his two assistants and he's not even acknowledging that I'm like in the room and my camera guy's like setting up. I'm just sitting there like.
I do think this was a little bit out of context though, as she did say she really enjoyed the interview.
That one we talked for too long. That was like 2 hours. Because we're like the same age and stuff, and it ended up being just like easy to talk to him about like everything.
Regardless, this clip really hurt the public opinion of Bobbi Althoff. Then as the public
I can see how that could be spun as like, negative. But if you don't take that clip in, I guess, full context like most things, it could do way more damage than it probably should have, but hey, damn shorty.
began to shift their opinion on her, people began to find many other reasons to dislike her. And I can kind of understand it, seeing that Lil Yachty clip out of context, but Bobbi did not let all of the hate stop her. Because of all this hate, a lot of people were saying she fell off, but I don't think that's nearly true at all. She still has a very strong fan base and has recently secured interviews with people like Tyga, J Balvin, Shaq, and Charlie Puth. That's the thing about her podcast in particular, is she isn't really the main focus, but her awkward personality usually puts the guests in a funny situation that allows them to shine. One commenter on the Lil Yachty interview said, "This show is a really great way to get a raw view of these celebrities. It feels so personal and casual." But where does all of this leave us? We have a basic understanding of her career so far, but we still don't know where she came from. Like most people think, she just comes off as some sort of podcast industry plant. Well, that's where her backstory comes into play. So Bobbi Althoff claims to have been poor growing up, and she says that her family really struggled, and many people understandably think this is a lie, but will growing up plan. Well, that's where her backstory comes into play. So Bobbi Althoff claims to have been poor growing up, and she says that her family really struggled, and many people understandably think this is a lie, but we'll touch more on that later. She also
I can see how people think that's a lie. Especially when you hop into hip hop and you did everything and rose as fast as she did, it just kind of seems just unnatural. Like you have a lot of money backing you. So whether that money be by like, a label or, some type of companies, some Fortune 500 companies, some type of shit funding you, that's a possibility. Or you had like generational wealth, or some type, or your parents had a lot of money or had money to fund these things for you to get started, and then you're good, not necessarily poor.
mentioned that her dad was a contractor. So Bobbi actually first began her career in 2020 on TikTok during quarantine. She went viral after posting videos about the life of a mom, especially when she posted a video of her lopsided boobs from breastfeeding. She was featured in articles online and even did a couple of interviews, which gives us our first clue.
So yeah, TikTok, I mean, I've heard that she was like really popping on TikTok.
Interestingly enough,
do I know why? No, but I do know that she had obviously a husband and kids, because the whole thing with Drake and people saying that she's cheating on. Oh, and yeah, the thing about her missing her kid's birthday to interview Drake.
One interview that I found while researching this video was deleted, but in the interview she mentioned being reached out to by directors who wanted to know if she would like to do acting, to which she said no because she was doing TikTok. She also mentioned in this interview growing up with no money. In the other interview, she mentioned how successful she was on TikTok and said she had over 2 million followers on TikTok in October of 2021. Anyways, as you can see,
I seen that whole thing of her like sucking in her stomach like while it's super expanded, especially if like she was like I'm assuming she was a certain amount of months pregnant at that time. That's why people thought she was like, I guess, faking her pregnancy because of her ability to do that.
she was really popular on TikTok in 2020, 2021, and 2022. She was so popular actually that she would get recognized in public, and even though she deleted a ton of her old TikTok videos, you can still find tons of duets and even tweets of people reposting it.
I think I got to like 3.4 million followers on TikTok with like awkward mom stuff.
So it was the same vibes?
It was.
Okay.
Yeah, I've had the same vibes since like the very first video I had that went like viral.
Bobbi was also probably making pretty good money from the creator fund too. She eventually started posting YouTube videos, many of which
Some people complain about the creator fund and how much it pays out. I'm not exactly, aware of how much they give out and all that good stuff because I'm not popping enough for that. But with how much, if she had 3.4 million followers on TikTok and however many views she was getting per video, yeah, her impressions were going stupid. So yeah, she was definitely making enough not to work.
which are now deleted, but she didn't.
Well, depending on her, her spending and how much she needed to make.
Success from that. She was actually in a pretty similar situation as she is now, because even before the podcast, she had a lot of her TikTok fans divided on whether or not they found her sense of humor funny. Eventually, she stopped posting her kids online because she wanted to be a little more private, and was even featured in an article for doing
Which is
this.
fair.
But another thing worth noting is that in her old TikToks, she would often feature her husband, Corey Althoff. Now, Corey Althoff is worth noting because he is a fairly successful tech guy. If you check his LinkedIn, you'll see that he's a senior vice president at a company called CompTIA. He's worked as a software.
And that sucks, bro. Cause like he's living what would be deemed as a normal life. He has a normal job. It's a great position, but it's not a public not popular, super public publicized job. So the fact that his whole shit is coming out now because she got popping kind of sucks. Like, just I would hate that.
For engineer.
But then again, he kind of got pushed into that life while her rise on TikTok, like they were together at the time, so kind of had to eat that.
Companies like eBay, and has written a couple of books. I've seen people estimate his net worth being anywhere from $100,000 to $15 million, and we all know the internet net worths aren't usually super accurate, but
they're terrible. They be lying, and it's some bullshit. Don't believe in net worth of anybody that putting out net worth. Don't believe that shit. That shit is cat. I don't even believe the people that saying what their net worth is. We don't know what's in these people's bank accounts and what they got. They're never gonna tell you the real number because there's a reason for it.
I wouldn't be too surprised if he had a decent amount of money, especially since his books seemed to sell pretty well. Him and Bobbi got engaged in 2019,
got a book,
married sometime after, and have 2 kids together. So because of
That's
this,
fire.
a lot of people think that her husband has been funding her career or providing her with some sort of connections, but again, we'll touch more on that later. However, this does provide us with our second clue. Anyways, following her TikTok success, she decided that she wanted to do a podcast. Her real first episode, which was deleted pretty quickly, was an episode with Colleen Ballinger, the ukulele girl. She did
Yeah, I would definitely get rid of that video. I don't know if she got rid of that right before the controversy with Colleen, or I mean like around that time, or it was after, but I would get that shit off my fucking page too, because hell no, I would want no association with that bullshit.
the same awkward thing she had done before, and some of the clips were actually pretty funny. As to why she deleted it, people think she wanted to either distance herself from Colleen or was just deleting it since it didn't do super well. But the reason I point out this episode is because of the thumbnail. That does not look like a thumbnail that a well-funded person with employees would use. The interview itself had decent production quality, but I highly doubt she was with an agency or company with that type of thumbnail, which gives us our third clue. She then interviewed Tamin Sursak, I don't know if I said that right, for Pretty Little Liars in her old set, which again is now deleted. However, the next episode had a much better thumbnail with better production quality. Now, the information we have available...
Getting the actress from Pretty Little Liars is pretty huge. I mean, that show, it's been a while, but that's big.
Is that she is currently with a talent agency called WME, and her production quality has gone up a ton. WME is a talent agency that has been around forever and operates in multiple entertainment industries with various high-level clients. One of those clients, of course, is Drake. Following Bobbi's interview with Drake, she quickly signed to WME. At least that's what all of the articles say. Many people are skeptical of this though and think that she was previously signed to WME, which is why she was able to get the Drake interview. And this definitely isn't out of the question to have an agency pull some strings to make something look organic, but
yeah, exactly. That's a really fair point. How many times have we seen somebody like, oh, I'm independent, and then just out of nowhere, oh, I got signed. They were probably signed for a while. They didn't publicly say they were signed for many reasons, because there's benefits in saying that you're independent and you're on the grind and everything looks organic when it's being super funded by a huge corporation, like I said before.
honestly could not find the exact date she signed, so I couldn't tell you for sure whether or not it's true. We do know that WME, more specifically Bobbi's agent TJ Bernardi, is responsible for hooking her up with a Mark Cuban interview, since Mark is one of his clients.
That's not fair. I manifested this podcast and it worked.
Well, we also have a great agent that I'm friends with.
No, that's not. He didn't help. He helped with your episode. He hasn't helped with anything else.
Oh, okay.
It was odd to me how defensive she got right away in that clip, maybe think.
Well, also if you're fighting industry plant, because at that point during the Mark Cuban, like the industry plant claims were already there. It was fast. I don't know how fast she did she recorded the Mark Cuban interview after the Drake interview, because you know things come out after the fact, so we don't know the time frame between the Drake interview recording and then the Mark Cuban recording. I just know the Mark Cuban came after. Those industry plant claims would make you defensive like that, but at the same time, it could also be the smoking gun. Like, hey, what do you got to hide? you're gonna give him credit. You weren't gonna probably give him credit because you didn't want to even have those claims even somewhat attached to you. But now you have no choice because Mark Cuban called you out on that bullshit. At least for his part, he can't speak on anything else.
thinking that his comment would fuel the industry plant accusations. But on the flip side of that, Hassan Piker, who is signed to WME, claims that they have never once helped him get a guest and doesn't think it's likely that WME is very helpful in getting Bobbi her other guests.
WME doesn't do shit for me, dog, okay? I've never actually gotten a single fucking person on the show, on the
Also, we could say Hassan's corrupt in that too. Like, come on, Hassan, you sir, could have been paid to say that because you are assigned there too, so you could be biased. You could have gotten paid for not gotten paid. You could have gotten some of them interviews, not just based on your popularity. It's possible, but who knows?
this stream off of WME.
I think as someone who's signed to WME and has some sort of podcast type of thing, his opinion is definitely valuable in helping us find out where she came from. But now we have our fourth clue, that she is currently signed with WME and her agent helped her secure the Mark Cuban interview, although they may not have been very helpful with other guests. So now I want to cover all of the theories that people have adopted following her extremely fast rise. The first one, and the one that I assumed for a while, is that it was some sort of nepotism. Many people have assumed that she has rich parents that have invested in her podcast and handed her some sort of connections.
It's just a lazy take. Like, I really want to, like, if there is some conspiracy theory with her, I want it to be something juicy, not some bullshit like regular shit. Oh, she's related to this person. I want it, if it's going to be somebody related, I want it to be like some off the wall shit. She is like the child of a mom that hid this girl on the other side of the country. She was being held by somebody else, like some whole wild shit
That allowed her to interview all of these big people. However, I think I'm gonna rule this theory out for a variety of reasons. First of all, she said she grew up struggling in multiple interviews, and regardless of how true that is, I got into contact with someone who claims to have gone to school with her. Now, I don't want to share their info or anything, but I have good reason to believe them, and they told me that they both went to a relatively low-income middle school. They said, I find it hard to believe she was anything but middle class, and I'm sure classmates would have been aware if she had famous or rich parents. She's also mentioned a few times that her dad was a contractor and even worked on Snoop Dogg's house, but she claims there was a point that they were so poor they had to sell things like her bed frame. On top of that, if they were really rich or famous, there are bound to be articles out there with their names on it, which there aren't. So unless Bobbi's team went nuts wiping the internet, I think this theory is the least likely. I don't want to entirely rule it out.
Wiping the internet of your last name is a lot of money and it's a lot of work. So if that is the case, yeah, they shouts out to her fucking team for clearing that shit up as much as possible. Like, you're gonna have to find somebody truly dedicated to try to actually find that dirt
But I think it's less
and hope that they didn't leave no fucking crumbs.
likely than the others. And this gives us our fifth clue, that it's unlikely that her parents are wealthy with connections. The second theory is that she was planted somehow by her husband or used her husband's money or connections to get into podcasting. Now, I doubt her tech programming husband is going to have many connections to the entertainment industry or know anything about it, so I doubt.
But he could. Money part, that's different. The funding of the equipment, that could be fair. But that's still, like, that's your wife. Like, you can't just be sitting here like, oh, he could have did that in good faith. It's not like she fucking necessarily just took the money or coerced him to giving it to her. That's kind of fucked up, just to put on some money.
He's the reason she's been making it big. So while I don't think this theory is very likely, I do think it's worth noting she had a secure income to fall back on since her husband was successful. Like I said, she also probably made some decent money from the creator fund on TikTok that she was able to invest into her podcast. So while this theory may be sort of true, since I'm sure she had a more secure income to help invest into her podcast, I doubt he was responsible for planting her into the industry. The third theory, and most likely one, is that because of her TikTok popularity, she somehow got into contact with an agency, likely one similar to WME, and got hooked up with all of the connections. They invested in her, made her podcast for her, helped her pick her style, got all of her guests, and then she blew up. It makes sense why people would think this, since she's had big guests right out the gate and pretty good production. So this theory is the one I think is most likely. But before we can get to the bottom of how she got here, first it's important to hear her story. So Bobbi's story of how she got so big is so simple it doesn't seem real, but after all the research research I've done, it actually seems pretty plausible. Bobbi said that she would ask her fans to take celebrities to be on her podcast, and if they agreed,
$300 help TikTok and podcast. Okay, this is the story of the $300 thing.
she would pay the fans $300.
I put a TikTok out and I was like, I'll give $300 to anyone who. The idea was I was hoping that like someone, I was like, if you tag someone and you get them to do it, I was hoping that like someone would tag like a celebrity and a celebrity would see that and be like, oh, I'll like do it. It worked, and I got this comedian Rick Glassman. I got him to do it.
Now this does sound ridiculous. Like there's no way this led to Drake getting on her podcast. But multiple people on her podcast brought up her strategy.
Yeah, she tagged me, and
Do you know her?
I don't.
Okay.
I went to the page and I saw that you were offering $300 to people helping, which I think is great. It's
Yeah.
tough. Booking is one of the hardest parts of podcasting.
Like
What made me bug you? I paid someone $300.
to get me here.
Yes.
Yeah, you just can't. You just can't take Marco serious. Like every time I see Marco, I just think about that academics clip. Yo, how old are you?
That's all I'm worth.
So them
my
confirming this
God.
makes it a lot more likely that it's true, and it makes a lot more sense, especially when you think about the fact that she wasn't some random person, but she had over 3 million followers on TikTok, which gives us our sixth clue. She also claims that Drake thought her Funny Marco interview was funny and followed her afterwards, so she simply asked him to come on the podcast. Because she's so firm in this story, she also said that she thinks it's funny to play into the whole industry plant thing online.
So what happened was I was at home like a few months ago, and I was just sitting there, and I got a call, and then I also got a knock at the door at the same time, and they were like,
I want to know where she's from, because I want to know where that accent is from.
"Hello, we're the industry,"
Unless he said it and I just wasn't paying attention.
and I was like, "What does that mean?" And they were like, "You can't ask any questions," and I was like, "Okay," and they were like, "You're gonna blow up. You just have to follow our lead."
So this is the fourth possible way in which Bobbi Althoff blew up so quickly. But what do I think? Well, I'm going to use Occam's razor here, something I just learned about, and I think a lot of the YouTube
Occam's razor is a principle often attributed to 14th century friar William of Occam that says that if you have two competing ideas to explain the same phenomenon, you should prefer the simpler one.
commenters at home could also learn about as well. So here's what I think happened. Bobbi blew up on TikTok in 2020 and 2021, which isn't too hard to believe. Tons of people went viral on TikTok during quarantine. She had a secure income from her husband and TikTok Creator Fund. So in 2023, she offered to pay fans
Yeah, and if you connect the TikTok Creator Fund and then the $300, yeah, I can believe that you should just transfer the funds and just invest it in yourself basically. So it worked out. Not saying that she still can't be planted, but I could see how that 300 up until that point, yes, I can see how that should work.
$300 to get guests on her new podcast. She said that for her first episode with Colleen Ballinger, she was doing everything by herself, had no help, and had no idea how to even upload podcasts to Spotify.
Because I didn't have a podcast, and I didn't upload it to actual Spotify. I didn't know how to. I was doing everything on my own. I put it on YouTube. It got 70,000 views, which was huge for my first video on YouTube.
She also mentioned that she had already knew Colleen and was friends with her, but that was during her Rick Glassman interview, and it definitely could have been a lie. But then her first episode with Rick Glassman is on all of the streaming services, has a nice thumbnail, and has better production value. So this is when I'm assuming she started getting some sort of help. She also mentioned working with an agency for brand deals when she first started. So whether it was an agency, a company, or more likely an individual acting as a mentor, I'm guessing Bobbi had some type of help setting up her podcast for the first handful of episodes.
Yeah, you're always gonna get help, or you're gonna find the avenue for where the help is, or you get the information. You might not have had somebody financially help you, or guiding you, fucking holding your hand the whole way. But yeah, hey,
But the quality still wasn't as good.
I just don't want to sound like I feel like I've been defending her this whole time. I just don't get I truly don't care. I don't know why I care. I don't.
As it is now, given the fact that her parents
Other than the fact that I'm reacting to this, if she's an industry plant or not, doesn't matter.
parents aren't likely to be super rich or famous or have all these connections, it doesn't seem like they helped her get to this point either. After the Funny Marco interview, like I said, Drake saw it since he follows Funny Marco on Instagram, thought it was funny, and followed her. He actually even admitted this in the podcast episode they did together.
Yeah, why'd you follow me on Instagram?
I don't know. You just remind me of people that I like.
I believe
That's kind of cringy, just out of context. That was a really cringy statement by Drake.
this even more after Lil Yachty said he reached out to Bobby to do a podcast first.
I actually reached out first. It just didn't send. You should change your messages. You have it so that people can't message you. You probably miss so many messages from people who think you're cool and wanna like do something with you.
What'd you say?
I said I want to do this shit.
Oh, when did you say that?
I said it like a night before you hit me.
Following the Drake interview, you see the podcast settle in a little more. So I am going to guess that it's true she did sign to WME after the Drake interview. Is it possible she signed before? Of course. But I doubt she signed back when she first started her podcast. After signing to WME, she utilized their connections to get with Mark Cuban and possibly even Shaq, since I think he's with them too. But now she definitely has enough pull to get celebrities on her own. So while Bobbi Althoff may not be the industry plant that
Oh yeah, she could have been an industry plant up until this point, and then, you know, once you get the fucking start, and then all you have to do is just continue and coast and just keep trying to rise from there. Shit, the fucking back end doesn't have to do shit.
everyone thinks she is, with big rich people manipulating every move she makes in the background just to make her famous. I do think she leveraged her TikTok fame, had a little help getting started, used the connections she already had from TikTok, and had guests like Drake and Lil Yachty genuinely want to feature on her podcast. So this is my theory based on pretty much every single piece of information about her available online. I think this is the most likely scenario. I don't think she's really lying about anything. But if you guys have an inside scoop and maybe I'm wrong about something, let me know.
I feel like there's some, I wouldn't say necessarily inconsistencies, but I do feel like there's some fudging of the truth. Won't say flat out lies because I have no proof of that, but some fudging has been going on. You know, a little help here and there. You know, just a little something. You ain't gotta tell people, but yeah, I understand. I understand, shorty. I understand. But that is the end of the video.
In the comments below. But thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like down below. Other than that, though, this has been Matty Balls, and I'll see you guys next time.
Shout out to Maddie. Fire video. Great breakdown. Definitely kept. If you didn't know anything about her, should be about enough to get a grasp of what was going on. But I am RegGamingTV. Shout out to Matty Balls once again. Like, comment, subscribe on the original video. Check out his his other content. Dude does a lot of breakdowns on other people as well. Dude makes dope content.